So I think this is going to be England Gambit installment number 5. We're spending a lot of time playing the England Gambit because no one knows the England Gambit very well, and the people who do know it unfortunately completely destroy it. But this person that we're about to see played it against, I played against them, and they decided to decline it, which I love. And you're going to see, as in the last video, that very strong players can make very horrible moves. So this person was rated 2262, and that's a blitz rating. You know, regular ratings are higher in general, and their blitz rating, 2262 and 50 chess and the like, came into play here. And as you see, we have a Stockfish 8 analysis on here. Stockfish 8 said take the pawn. This person pushed. I always respond bishop to c5 after they push like that. I don't care what the computer says. And this person played a lot of good logical moves. And as you say, the computer already says I have an advantage. I should play knight to f6. Usually I try to get an f5 first, but with the bishop there the way it was, I would have just lost a pawn. So now they're suggesting knight to f3 instead of that bishop move. Why did they make that bishop move? Well, don't know. You know, frankly, they just get double e-pawns, right? You know, I guess they just hated the fact that that bishop was staring them in the face down at f2 with all the sack threats and everything that could happen. And they decided they could play with it, and certain strong players think that they can do anything. So now they have doubled pawns, and I'm up almost 1. Furthermore, I have the easy shot knight takes e4, which I didn't play. Why didn't I play it? Well, frankly, too much faith in my opponent. You know, once again, rating intimidation. Why didn't I look for it? Well, how many moves into the game are we? You know, just a few, right? You know, how many times do people blunder hideously in the opening? Well, this is the second example of a game against somebody of a fairly high strength who blundered hideously in the opening, and I didn't take advantage of it. So instead, I made that move, which chases his queen. Instead of being up a full pawn, it gives him the opportunity to nearly equalize. And now what's interesting is the computer wants me to play c6. Well, obviously, that does attack the d pawn because to recapture would mean e4 and a fork. So instead, I decided to play against that e pawn. Now I've switched into positional mode. That is something that I can do occasionally, and it's a much sounder way of playing chess. And I hate to play this way, and I hate for people to see me play this way, but now we're going to just castle and have a better game. Computer's recommending knight to c3. This guy moves b4. Okay, so what's the idea behind b4? Well, I'd say there's 2 or 3 ideas. Number 1, he doesn't want my knight coming to c5. Number 2, he wants to play c4 and then c5 in a traditional white side of a King's Indian type situation. That almost demands that response, which I made right away. And it says he needs to push b5, which he did not do. Now what's interesting is the computer's recommending c5 and double pressuring that pawn. And instead I play the weak move bishop to h5. Now what's the idea of bishop to h5? Well, it's a very Potzer-like idea. Okay, there are 2 things involved. Number 1, I can put additional pressure on that e-pawn by backing up to g6. And number 2, under the right circumstances, I can play knight to g5, or g4 rather, attacking his e3 pawn. So right now it's suggesting he just develop normally, which he does. Now I retreat, which is the computer's best move. Now he once again covers his pawn. Now what he's got is a really disgustingly bad bishop. That white squared bishop is going nowhere, and now he's got what amounts to a bad queen too, very similar to the bishop. So now it says I can just take the pawn, and I have a feeling that I was coming close to doing this. Instead, I came up with this weaselly idea of getting my queen, my very inactive, lousy queen, on a long diagonal, attacking that weak set of doubled pawns again. You know, the pawn at the base of his 0 chain. So now it says he should move a3, which he doesn't do. And now I simply attack that pawn again. And he protects it. And these are, looks like all number 1 moves, so this guy is, he's playing better than his opening. now what we do is we fracture his pawns, and the computer wants me to jump down there in A3 to prevent him from protecting. Instead, I decide that I'm going to pressure everything at once. I'm going to pressure the B pawn, going to keep pressure on the E pawn. Both E pawns are under pressure, although the computer says I'm only up slightly. And he jumps with his knight to a place that makes it difficult for me to do anything but take his pawn, and he's putting me to the test, basically. And so that was an interesting idea, and I just took the pawn. Now it says he can move A4, which gives me a difficult retreat for my queen. So, as I recall, he just chased my queen. Now, of course, I go for not only a queen trade, but if you look all of a sudden at what's happened here, I'm way up. Look, I've almost got a winning advantage. I consider as soon as I get to +2, I'm a winning advantage. So my pawn is indirectly protected. If he takes it, I can do a variety of things, but knight to c5 is definitely in the works. So I'm attacking the A pawn, and suggesting he just take, but he trades queens. Now he's down 3. Okay, so what's so bad about trading queens? Well, bishop on d3 is not protected anymore, and now he needs to do something about that, because what he does is blunder. So that's a grotesque blunder. 2262 just gave me a piece, right? So that's not good. I can move knight to c5, except he can retreat rook to b3, and if he retreats rook to b3, then I got to take his rook instead, and then he reattacks my rook, and then I go to the 7th, things like that. I'm probably going to get his e pawn in the middle of all this, but the fact is that all I really needed to do was do that, and instead, I believe, I moved there, protecting the c pawn. I didn't really want him to get my c pawn. That's my recollection of why I did that exactly, because I saw him doing some things with tempo and having a passed a pawn and a variety of things. So I didn't go for the +4. Instead, I'm still +2.5. And now he should play rook on e to b1, which protects a certain number of things, but I still have that very annoying knight to c5, and it's almost worse now than it was, and his a pawn's hanging, and all these things worked in my favor. Now I play it, and he may as well resign. That's the truth. So he retreats, and I took his rook, and the game's over. So I'm not sure I want to show you the rest of this. It's probably a waste of all of our times, but it shows you just what happens sometimes out of a simple formation. Somebody declines the gambit, they don't know it. They end up doubling their own pawns, and their structural weakness killed them in the end. And all this came out of a silly England gambit, which should lose. And that's today's video.